Welcome to the Atheist in Recovery podcast, where we talk about finding hope in recovery. And now your host, Dr. Adina Silvestri.
Hola, Atheists in Recovery, and welcome to episode 98 of the Atheists in Recovery podcast. And today is a solo episode, and we're talking about 3 tips on how to overcome guilt, shame, and regret in early recovery. So before we jump in, I want to give you a framework on how I define these 3 emotions as I see them. And so guilt for me is I did something wrong. My actions, my behaviors, I own this, I did something wrong. And shame is something that I study pretty often in the practice. And to break it down into a couple of sentences, there's something wrong with me. In my practice, people come in, eyes down, head down. They don't want to be seen. They want to flee. And the word itself comes from Old English, and it means to cover. So it's very much a hidden affect. And it's a blanket for all the other emotions. And so once you can actually identify the shame, things get a lot easier, and recognize it and be okay with it as much as you can be, right? Regret. So regret is if I could only change my past behaviors, then there would be a better outcome. And I hear all 3 of these a lot in early recovery. And so let's talk about some tips on how we could overcome these. And then I'm going to give you a little bonus tip at the end. So stay tuned for that. Number 1. Increase your self-forgiveness. In order to walk through any difficult emotion, self-forgiveness needs to be a part of that toolkit. We all do things that we've regretted at times. When in the early stages of recovery, these feelings of regret, shame, and guilt can be amplified. So we have to learn to love all the parts of ourselves, even the unflattering ones. As one of my favorite Buddhist teachers, Jack Kornfield, once said, "Forgive me for not having a different past. What kind of life might I have if I was as devoted to shifting my inner landscape as I was to my external environment?" We all have light and dark aspects of ourselves. We have to learn to accept and love all of them. And if you need a little inspiration, you can listen to my Star Wars episode 25. Learn how to find the force in recovery, and I'll link to that in the show notes. Number 2, increase your connections spiritually, emotionally, somatically. I hear pretty often it's hard to see oneself in a positive light because our thoughts can be brutal. And who are we to argue with our brain? Well, you came to the right place. I will argue for you. If you feel you can't be a soothsayer and figure out where these thoughts are coming from, then you need someone on the outside to help you. It's just that basic. Increase your connections. Find a mentor. Ask your loved ones for help. Go to your clergy, if that's how you find help and solace. Or find a therapist. There's a definite neurophysiological aspect to addiction, and there's definitely a psychological aspect as well. So connect. Therapists are great for calling bullshit on your thoughts, or at least this therapist is really good at it. You can just ask my clients. And meetings aren't the best place sometimes to go deep with these emotions. Sometimes there's just not enough time, and you really want somebody that has a bit of background in addiction to really lead you to a place of healing. Number 3, increase your resilience. And I like to think of resilience as just bouncing back like a rubber ball. There is a great TED Talk on resilience, and I'm going to link to it in the show notes. But just to summarize what Dr. Lucy Hone says in the episode, she really explains resilience in depth. This is what she studied her entire life, and she discusses 3 strategies that she's relied upon. And as she conducted a self-experiment. And so number 1 is to know that suffering is a part of life. The question is not why me, but why not me? That's huge. Why not me? Am I so special that nothing bad should ever happen to me? So people with greater resilience, they ask that question. Why not me? They accept that suffering will occur. They don't like it. They don't invite it in, but they accept it. Number 2, carefully choose where you're directing your attention. Focus on things that you can change and let go of the things that you cannot change. And Dr. Lucy also talks about practicing benefit finding to find things that you are grateful for. This is really great. And I think that it could be even a part of your journaling routine. I know that I do this at the end of my journaling entries. I'll usually put some things that I'm grateful for at the end. And sometimes you really have to dig deep, guys. I'm not going to lie. It's if you're having a tough go of it, if life just has been particularly cruel to you recently, you're going to have to really dig deep. And sometimes it's just looking for the beauty, looking for anything, beauty in the environment, a kind face, a friendly gesture from a stranger. I mean, anything you could think of. 3, ask yourself whether your current behaviors are harmful or helpful to you. And this is good. And I use this a lot in the practice. If you're looking at photos of a lost loved one, or if, there was an end to a relationship that you're particularly grieving and having a hard time with, ask if it's helping you or harming you. Doing these behaviors, looking at these photos, is it helping you or harming you? I love that. And you can use that in so many different ways. You could use it if you're getting ready for a big job promotion and your thoughts are full of failure. If you're trying to make in any realm, really, jobs, personal life, professional life, you can really ask those questions. Is this helping you or harming you? And, just to kind of talk a little bit more about these emotions, we use guilt, shame, and regret as motivation to increase your resilience. You can make peace with your past and then create a future self and a life that's too amazing to ever want to step away from. And to go back to resilience, if you slip, you measure your progress not by whether you've fallen or not, but how well you bounce back from the fall. That's where the real strength lies. How well did you do in bouncing back? Number 4, bonus. What you're feeling is not fact. And I know that's sometimes hard for us to believe, but our thoughts are not who we are. We're more than our thoughts. We're more than our actions. We're more than that hole in the middle of your face that consumes food and drink. We're more than that. And so these theories, I like to call them theories, need to be investigated. And episode 52, Drinking and Anxiety, What's the Connection, explains a process that I use in order to investigate thoughts, and it's called RAIN. So definitely check that out, and I'll link to it in the show notes. But, a sober life means feeling all the emotions, whereas before you masked them, you numbed them out. But now a sober life means feeling all the emotions. And in early recovery, that can be very triggering. Good and bad. Knowing that by increasing your tolerance, you will begin to live a life that's bigger and better than you ever imagined. All right, guys. So that concludes the 3 tips plus 1 bonus tip on how to overcome guilt, shame, and regret in early recovery. Before you go, I want to remind you to sign up for the monthly newsletter where we talk all about thoughts and emotions and challenging our thoughts and emotions in order for you to live a bigger and better life. And you can go to atheistinrecovery.com, click on the green subscribe button on the homepage, and sign up. And thank you for listening. Bye, guys. Thank you for listening to the Atheists in Recovery podcast. For more great info and to stay up to date, head over to atheistinrecovery.com.